everybody, John here, and today onto the garage. We're doing a little job on Betsy, the T4 Autosleeper. And some of you remember that not too far back, I did a job to correct a problem with the clutch. And at the time, I mentioned the fact that they have a weakness around the bracketry that supports the master cylinder. Now, I did all my investigations, I bled the clutch, I adjusted the clutch, I changed the master cylinder and problem resolved. However, that doesn't mean it still hasn't got that weak point, which is where the master cylinder attaches to the vehicle. So, I obtained a kit from Boatyard Buses. And Neil there, hi Neil, was kind enough to supply this. And he designed this bracket and the little fitting kit that goes with to resolve the problem some years ago. And there are lots of copies of the same item on the internet now, but I have seen some of them on other people's vehicles. So please beware. This is the guy who came up with it in the first place. This fits. And look at it, it's 5mm thick steel. It's well finished and is going to line up with everything. Some of them are just bent bits of metal, thinner, not going to line up. So, you know, pays your money, takes your choice. Anyway, I've got the original proper kit from Neil, and that's basically the bespoke bracket, 3 new bolts, a nylock nut, and some assorted washers. And this simple kit gets rid of the issue entirely. So what is the issue? If we look underneath the dash on my T4, I point you in the right direction, this is the master cylinder, the bit that does the movement of the oil to the clutch and makes everything operate. And I replaced that because that was actually what was wrong with my vehicle. However, what's wrong with a lot of vehicles with their clutch is when you depress the pedal, it's trying to move this cylinder, it's actually moving the piston, and over time this bracket fatigues and snaps, or at least fractures, and then the whole system starts to move around and you don't get the full action or stroke on your clutch pedal. If that does break, you end up with welding it, and there's insulation everywhere, so you're probably going to take things out or replacing the pedal box. None of it's simple and easy. So this kit supplied by Neil, basically you can fit it to a system like mine but doesn't have a problem now as preventative action, or as a repair if you've got the crack. And the bracket I showed you is going to bolt onto this and this, which are bolts going through the bracket that tends to break into the master cylinder. And then we can see the male end of a bolt coming through the bulkhead. And this bolt is going into a captive nut, and I'm going to remove it from the other side, so screw it away from us, replace it with a new bolt, and then the thread sticking through here is the additional mounting point, meaning that the movement being applied to this unit, a lot of that load is transferred to here. And you've seen the thickness of the bracket. Even if this one wasn't in place, this would still resist it. There is some sound deadening here, but because we've got a captive nut welded on, when you pull up against this, the bracket is going to touch the nut, and so the sound deadening doesn't have to come out of the way. So theoretically, 3 fixings. One of them's under the bonnet, 2 of them under here, and other than getting your head under your steering wheel, should be relatively straightforward to do. So I'm going to remove this bolt from underneath the bonnet first and screw the new bolt into place. Okay, so my vehicle is a 2.4 non-turbo diesel, or the AAB engine. However, if you're doing this task on any of the others, it should be very, very similar. It just might not look the same under the bonnet because of the different engine. So the bolt in question is down here to the right of the servo, just there. That's the one that's got to come out. It's 13mm. A little ratchet. Get that into position. And it's going into a captive nut, so no worries about being on the other side as well. It's not the easiest to access, but you can see what you're doing, which means you can persevere and get the job done rather than just throwing your tools around and stomping off like I sometimes do. This might be one where exactly the right length of extension is necessary to make this a very simple job. And I'm just wondering if that exact right length is actually huge. Let's have a look. Yep, so actually what I've done is I've got about 300mm of extension, and I'm going underneath the air pipe and straight across to where the nut is. So let's now see what I can do. Oh, easy as pie. No idea where that expression comes from. I can't make a pie. Back out with the socket. And if I can get my hand on the nut, which I can. Out it comes. So we're going to replace that, as you can see, is about 1 centimetre longer on thread. Going in. And get our socket back on. There we go. All done. So for easy-ish access, you need a little setup like that. 13mm and a good foot of extension. So now you can see the long bolt coming through, and that is going to be used with that hole at the bottom, like so. There we go. And you can see the 2 bolts above it are going to come out the master cylinder in order to assemble this properly. So let's get that bracket back off, and now loosen off the 2, again 13mm bolts holding the master cylinder in place. Just be aware when you've undone both of these, there's nothing stopping the master cylinder from moving around other than the copper pipes. You don't want to be straining it, so basically don't touch more than you have to, don't maneuver it more than you have to. One. And you see it's loose, moving around already. 2. Again, the kit includes a slightly longer bolt and washers. All I'm going to do now is basically manoeuvre this into position and get the first of the two bolts in. So it's going to pop that through there. I'm going to hook it onto the new long bolt, coming through the bulkhead like so. That's a mistake. I thought I could do that using the extension bar, but I haven't got the space. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the nut on the new long bolt, just wind it back a little, see if that gives me a better run at putting the bolt in to the master cylinder. Having changed the master cylinder, I can confirm that it is not an easy place to stick your hands around here. Just to start to line things up properly. Let's see how we get on. Right, I think what I want to do is slacken. There's a bolt, oops, just at the base of this element, and it seems a bit tight up there. So I think if I slacken that bolt, might improve the situation a touch. Let's try it. That's that slack. Okay. Now it did seem that this element dropped just a fraction, and that's giving a little space above it for the bracket to go into. Here's going to be a toss-up between which is better to fit first, the one at the bulkhead or the one on the master cylinder. I've got them all slack, properly slack now. Let's see if that's sorted things out. That feels good. Yep. So slackening off that bolt there makes it easier to wriggle things into place. Here we go. Go the right way. Alright, don't want to do that up too much because I've got the other one to get in. And that one's going to go straight in with no problems. Just got to get my socket on. There we go. So, after plenty of slackening, wobbling, jiggling, etc., all the bolts are back in place. We're just now going to tighten them up. And my plan will be tighten these two fully onto the master cylinder. Then pull that one back. Then finish off with this one at the end of the long black bracket that seems to support the steering column. There's not a particular science to that idea. It just feels like it'll give everything a chance to line up properly in that order. But it's just getting to them makes it a bit of a pain. which is also why a lot of these vehicles have a problem with the pedal and it gets neglected, or they just get sold on. So yeah, easy peasy so far. Right, I'll come back to when these are tightened up. And there we go, back into place. No possibility of the master cylinder or bracket twitching at all. Certainly not going to flex, and if it was fractured that would have repaired it. So I think quick, easy with a caveat of access, fix, nicely made bracket, everything you need at a very cheap price. That looks like the easy solution. Isn't worth making your own bracket, that's for sure. So Boatyard Buses, that is where I got that from. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to get one. Then my recommendation is get one from the original, not one of the copies, because I have seen a couple and they're bad. So if you like T4s, Volkswagens, T2s, Jaguars, or just playing around in your garage, then please consider subscribing to this channel, To The Garage, because we're always up to something. Loads more good stuff going to be done to Betsy over the coming months, and we look forward to seeing you. See you soon. Bye.